Does your dog struggle to settle after you come back from walks? Like, no matter how far you walk them or run them around, when you get back, they're still full of energy. They're pacing around, they're pestering you for attention, they're pacing back and forth, they're leaving a trail of chaos and destruction behind them. They're just generally restless, and it just feels like that walk that you went on just did not even scratch the surface. If that feels like life right now, then this video is for you. But before we get into it, let me introduce myself. I'm Junior, founder of Paws of Wisdom, where I help overwhelmed owners and their over-the-top and dysregulated dogs find clarity, rebuild foundations, and kickstart regulation, basically get back onto the same page. When I started out on this journey years ago with my own dog, I thought that more walks equaled calmer dog, obviously, right? But I soon found out that that wasn't the case for my dog and for a lot of the dogs that I actually work with. Because walks are naturally stimulating. They're not only the highlight of a lot of dogs' days, but walks are also filled with stimulation. There are other dogs, other people, there are smells, sights, sounds. It's a complete new world. And for many dogs, they're absolutely fine with this. But for those who struggle with regulation, for those who are more reactive, who are more anxious, for those slightly more dysregulated dogs, this can all be a bit too overwhelming. These dogs end up focusing more on their environment, so on the triggers. They stay in states of anticipation, they stay in states of fear, or just overexcitement on these walks, and they just don't reap the benefits of the actual walk. This is why these dogs come back a lot more stressed out and on edge than they were before we even left the house. And then a common thing that we do as owners is we add more of these walks on, because if they're getting back a lot more stressed out, then they obviously haven't been walked enough, or they haven't been ran around enough. But we're just adding more fuel to the fire. We're adding more chaos into their lifestyles. So how do you get a dog who struggles to settle after a walk to actually shut off? And over time, I've come up with 3 non-negotiables that are great for this. Making sure that we're meeting their needs, number 1. Secondly is having a wind down routine. And then finally is enforcing rest if we have to. So firstly is meeting their needs. If we don't meet our dog's needs on a walk, and if these walks are so chaotic and overwhelming and they're not focused on the actual walk to reap the benefits of it, then they aren't going to get their needs met on the walk. And walks in general aren't that great for meeting needs anyway, because at the end of the day, walks are just cardio and exercise. What dogs really need is they need a purposeful outlet that satisfies their drive, that not only gives them the exercise that they need, but it also gives them a sense of fulfillment on the inside. This is why something you might have heard is that 20 minutes of sniffing is equivalent to an hour's walk, because sniffing ticks those boxes. It satisfies that drive. It gives a sense of fulfillment. Walking really doesn't. The second non-negotiable is wind down routines. And this is quite a big one. A lot of dogs really do struggle to settle after walks because they don't have a routine that helps them transition from chaotic and overstimulated to one where they're a lot more calm. You've got to think about it like when you come back home from work, you don't try going straight to sleep. And if you have tried it before, you know how hard it is to actually fall asleep after work. We have some form of wind down routine, whether that is putting something on TV, reading a book, having a shower or a bath, having something nice to eat, hanging out with our dogs, gaming for a little bit, whatever it is, we have some form of routine that we do that helps us switch from work mode to chill mode. And only once we are in that chill mode are we able to sleep. The same thing goes for our dogs. We can't expect them to switch off and transition into a state where they're not pacing around when we haven't given them some form of routine that helps them switch off. A wind down routine does not have to be complicated at all. All it really needs to be is a sufficient level of decompression or a sufficient activity that isn't too overstimulating, that can basically bridge our dogs from chaos to calmness. And my favorite activity is scatter feeding, hands down. A great way to use scatter feeding is literally after you've come back from a walk, you get your dog's breakfast and you scatter it everywhere. Then you're killing two birds with one stone. You're not only helping them wind down, but scatter feeding is also a form of mental stimulation in a way. And if you do it in long grass or if you do it in the garden and if you do it for like 20 minutes, you're adding on a nice bit of time. Remember, I said that 20 minutes of sniffing is equal to an hour's worth walk. Imagine you go for a walk, you have your outlet, and then you provide them with an extra 20 minutes of scatter feeding in an environment that's non-chaotic. That routine alone can work wonders, and I've seen it work wonders for dogs. There are other activities that you can do apart from scatter feeding. You can use lick mats, Kongs, snuffle mats, treat dispensing toys, just as long as it isn't overstimulating and it helps your dog wind down and is long enough that it doesn't leave your dog wanting more or leave them on a high, then this is perfectly fine as well. Another great option is putting your dog's food in a series of cardboard boxes and allowing them to forage through the boxes. It's all about these simple activities that help wind your dog down in an area that isn't overwhelming, that isn't stressful, that allows them to fully transition into a state of calmness. The final non-negotiable into how to get a dog to actually settle after a walk is rest or enforced rest. Now, a big factor that dogs do struggle to settle down is because they just don't know how to settle down. A lot of dogs get FOMO and end up pacing back and forth because number one, they just don't know how to settle, but secondly, they just think there's still things to do. And you've got to think of it like an overtired child. When they get to that point, when they get cranky, when they start crying, when they start trying to preoccupy themselves and find things to do, we give them a nap time. It's the same thing for our dogs. We have to create a safe space for them where they're able to have that nap time. And if that means that we have to either put them on a place or we have to tether them or crate train them, then those should be high options. Because realistically speaking, once they learn how to settle and rest, and once we can meet their needs and give them a wind down routine as well, all of this becomes a habit. What may start with them resisting at first will end up becoming a routine where you get to the end of it and they'll go to their crate on their own or they'll go to their bed on their own because that's the routine. They know there's nothing left to do and it's time for that nap. When dogs actually learn to switch off, they can regulate faster, they can process that internal stress, they can finally reset. And when all of this becomes possible, they become easier to train, they become easier to live with. They're not constantly getting themselves into trouble all the time. They're more regulated. A calm dog doesn't come from more walks or like more exercise. A calm dog comes from more recovery. So to wrap this up, if you are dealing with a dog that struggles to settle after walks, then make sure firstly that you're meeting their needs. Proper outlets, adequate mental stimulation, and proper rest. Also, make sure you're giving them a wind down routine. Make sure you're giving them a safe space that they can settle into. Because only when we give them the tools to actually be calm and regulated can they actually use them.